Welcome to another very special OneSoccer presentation. To mark the return of the Premier League in England, we're holding our very own OneSoccer EPL preview show. I'm your host, Asa Rahman. Very happy to be hosting this show alongside my good friends, the voice of the CPL, OneSoccer personality, and host of the hit YouTube show Inside the Game, Gareth Wheeler. And also very excited to be joined by the man who's covered soccer in Canada for more than 20 years. Hosted the Footy Show on The Score, then Soccer Central on Sportsnet, currently hosting the highly entertaining Footy Prime podcast, the James Sharman. Welcome, fellas.
Gentlemen, how you doing? Great to be on.
20 years, Sharman.
Know,
20
man.
years. Wow.
What scares me about that is that it means I've known you for 20 years, Wheeler.
I know. And our relationship has never been better.
Hasn't it?
As we are apart.
Yeah, it's good to bring us all together here via YouTube, via Zoom. The game we love is back as well. Bundesliga, La Liga started up. We know Champions League is returning in August as well. And in about an hour, we'll see the first EPL match in over 3 months. Gareth, do you remember the last EPL match? Who played and what the result was?
No, I don't. But 100 days, it's been a long 100 days. Yeah. And I'm going to be honest with you, when it was first announced that the EPL was coming back, I kind of had my reservations. But sitting here today, less than an hour away from Villa Sheffield United, I couldn't be happier. I just think that there's been so much progress. I think we're ready for this. And I can't wait for these final 9 or 10 games for some teams to see how this all shakes out. I think that we're all ready for it. And I'm so excited to get this thing going.
Yeah, James, you remember that last one?
Quick
trivia off the top.
I think that the final weekend, United actually beat City, right?
That's right.
But that wasn't the last game, though, was it?
And there was a Leicester 4-0 win over Villa. So Aston Villa's trying to score once again.
The only one that stands out to me is 3-0 Watford Liverpool. That's the one.
That's the one.
Yeah, I thought you might say that. Well, have fun today, Will. Have some fun today. But yeah, 100 days, I mean, it's crazy. And if I ever thought I'd be this excited to watch Aston Villa take on Sheffield United, I thought you'd be calling me crazy. But yeah, it's been too long. It's going to be different. We know that. But I think with respect to Germany and some of these other leagues, when the Premier League returns, it feels like football's back, you know? Yeah. And I know that's a little bit arrogant maybe, but it is the most watched league in the world. It's the most popular league in the world. It's arguably the best league in the world. So, listen, football's back in some form or another.
Well, James, I know you're a Liverpool supporter.
Can you tell?
For your that was for you. I've just learned that you're a Liverpool supporter. So when this is all done, we can all assume that Liverpool will be claiming the title. But do you believe it will have an asterisk or not when it's all said and done? And should it?
Shame for even suggesting such a thing. This season will have an asterisk for sure. I mean, simply because it's truncated. It's this crazy moment in history. We'll remember it for that. But listen, 25 points, people. It's been 30 games, 29 games of action. They've dominated from the outset. There should not be anything beside this title aside from one of the great seasons of all time. As simple as that. And it's an odd one, and it's a shame that they can't do it in front of their fans. But to say that it shouldn't count the same as City or a United championship, to me, is absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah, I don't think it's ludicrous at all, because now we're going through an unprecedented time where a third of the or a quarter of the season is going to be played in completely different conditions, and we cannot say that the football that's going to be played over the course of the next month resembles what we experienced between August and March. And look, yes, 25 points. They're unquestionably, the best team in the Premier League, arguably the best team in Europe, although they won't be winning the Champions League this year as well. But listen, the Premier League, Europa League, the Bundesliga, Champions League, they're all going to have an asterisk this year, just based upon the way that it's played out. And for Liverpool,
the seasons will, not the actual championships, I don't think, because they're playing a full schedule, and just because the last 9-10 games are played in front of empty stadiums,
but they're not being played.
It's still relevant.
But right now, like, the statistics in Germany bear what you need to know, what we're going to experience over the next month. The home side has won with people in the crowd 43% of the time in Germany. before the pandemic hit. After the pandemic hit, and it's a small sample size, but they're only winning at a clip of 22%. So I don't know how we can say what we're going to experience over the next month is anything like what we experienced. And look, crazy things happen in football. And Liverpool slipped up before. Just ask Steven Gerrard about slipping up.
Not that crazy. You couldn't help yourself.
They're not slipping up.
But at the same time,
25 points in 10 games.
But the fact that there's been this gap, the fact that it's being played in a much different way, you have to put an asterisk beside it. I'm sorry.
In many ways, I think it's more memorable, this way, in that we'll look back on the season of 2019, 2020 as being something that we've never seen before, barring, a world war. It's incredible. It doesn't take away from the achievements of any of the teams, I don't think. But of course, we will look back and think, wow, who won that year? Of course, Liverpool won that year. What a crazy experience it was for everyone involved. But, to see it, finish finally the right way, as opposed to saying, wow, with 30 games in, we'll just hand off the championship. That, I think, would have had an asterisk. So, sure, absolutely. But not having completed the whole season.
I agree with you. It's going to be memorable. There's no doubt about it. And not just in terms of the fact that we've dealt with the pandemic, the style and the dominance that Liverpool's shown over the course of the season. Obviously, this is going to be a memorable championship, but at the same time, there's absolutely going to be an asterisk beside any competition that's been staged in 2019, 2020. That works for MLS. That works for anything domestic. Everything is different. So there's no way you can separate that for me.
If nothing else, we're learning how to pronounce the word asterisk.
Yeah.
Right. I just figured it out myself.
Baseball's used to it, right? Baseball.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. But, I think you look at this season, though, and what stands out aside from this dominant run for Liverpool, well, it was the parity perhaps this season. You look at the table right now; these are big games now, going down to the wire for the chase for the Champions League, which might be 5th place this year, right? If Man City do get kicked out of the Champions League, as we think they will, 5th place could be enough. And this I think, was it 9 points between 4th and 10th right now? There's 7 teams right now potentially in relegation trouble. It was shaping up to be this incredible season, I thought, this year, beyond the actual race for first place. And I think we can still enjoy that and still embrace that.
Yeah, by Sharman saying that, he's giving Palace a chance for a Champions League spot. Can
you imagine Roy Hodgson back in Europe where he belongs?
Incredible.
Well, you got Wolves and Sheffield United in there.
It's not going to happen.
Some interesting stories. I'm curious to see how these teams approach these next 2 months as well. And going back to Liverpool, do you think that they need to get to that 100 for validation to set a mark there to really engage the fan base and say we did this?
No. Trust me, as a longtime Reds fan, and I'm unapologetic about that, even with Wheeler beside me here. It doesn't matter. Listen, that's lovely. That's gravy. Right. Records are gravy. Just getting back onto the top of the heap for the first time in 30 years, somewhere where they belonged when I grew up in the 80s. That to me is everything. And sure, records are lovely. And if you can surpass those ridiculous centennials of Man City, then brilliant. Of course, you're going to embrace it. But listen, this is about winning the championship. This is about Jurgen Klopp taking this team one step further from last year, which some people doubted. What it means in the future, who cares? This is about getting back to, the perch where certain team kicked them off 30 years ago now.
Yeah, but Klopp says that he wants that history as well. He said he wants to smash it. He said that this week. So although I agree with you, Sharman, that they don't have to, that's not what they're going to be judged upon if they really want to leave that legacy. I mean, they're not winning Champions League this year, right? You can go back to last year, the entire calendar year from last year's Champions League till now. It's been an incredible run. They lost to Atletico Madrid and they lost to Watford. Yeah. They've run everyone else. So if you want to leave an indelible mark on the history of the game, you go on and make history. And I actually think they will. They have a relatively easy run in here. There's no pressure. They don't have to look ahead to August playing in the Champions League. Their sole focus is on picking up as many points. And they're fit. They're healthy. I have a hard time seeing them dropping more than a match or two, albeit in different conditions. I just think that behind closed doors, you're going to see the really good teams, I think, just be that much better than some of the average team that rely on the atmosphere and other intangibles to keep them in games. I think Liverpool can go on a really special run here over the next few months.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, listen, I know Klopp said that and he had to say that. Of course, legacy wins are you have to say you want them and you want to dominate and get records. But I'm just saying, from the fan standpoint, this to me is almost the beginning of something. This is, it started last year with the Champions League. It's progressed through this crazy, insane year for the title. What about next year, the year after? He wants to build a dynasty, and whether he can do that, we're going to see. Obviously City are going nowhere. United's getting much better. Don't rule out Spurs and Arsenal next year. Leicester's a very good team. It's going to be harder than
Chelsea
to be Chelsea. Absolutely. Well, they're going to spend it and are spending right now. So it might be harder right now to form a legacy and a dynasty than ever before. We've seen it in recent years, of course, but I just think that for the average fan, it's like, let's just take a breath here. Let's not ask for too much. We're going to be Premier League champions. For the first time ever. This was a league in the first division that I grew up winning pretty much every year. It was normal to me to say, I'm a Liverpool fan. My team's the best team in England, in Europe for several years. Now, let's just take a breath, enjoy it, and say, okay, it's a building block, and we are English champions.
That's tough for a building block because of all those factors that you mentioned. I don't know if the Fenway Group's going to go out and spend mass amounts of money. Timo Werner looked like he was going to go to Anfield. You like the fact that they won't? Do they have enough internally? Maybe
if it's economic, obviously that's an issue. But I love the fact that this team, they're going to add here and add there. They're not going to go out for perhaps the big spend, the big splash. It's a team that they can actually still grow. It's still a young team, Wills. Don't forget, it's a pretty young team. The captain Henderson, is still very much in his prime. Mo Salah, he might look much older, but he's not. Sadio Mane is still young. Bobby Firmino's in his prime. This is a team that can grow together, and often you can reward these teams, by keeping them together. So, yeah, you got to spend money, and I thought Timo Werner was going there as well. But I think Klopp said himself last week, again, he had to say it. That's not a bad thing. It's fine. We're going to spend when we're ready to spend. But at the moment, this team can grow and mature together.
Maybe I'm a little bit more pessimistic about it. Full credit to Klopp. I think he's got the most out of what he has. I think the team needs to strengthen. I think that they've overachieved for what they actually have in the team. I don't think they're that good. I think that they have holes in the midfield.
They're not that good.
Sharman, I think that they're I am actually shocked every time I see Liverpool play that they come away with wins as often as they do.
But they keep doing it, right?
That's why I'm surprised
that what they've bonded.
I know you're saying
that's what I'm saying. And that's why I'm giving Klopp a lot of credit here, because I think it has more to do with their style of play than it does the players that they have in the team. They just run over teams, run around, run through. They're the fittest team in the league. They have speed all over the place. And what you're seeing is other teams now adapt and evolve and try to bring in younger, quicker players to kind of mimic that style. And I give them full credit for being able to achieve what they have, but I do think that they need to strengthen in order to keep that standard moving forward.
I will say I think they're actually better last season. I thought they played more consistently.
I think so too.
They were more dynamic as well last season as well, but that takes nothing away from what they're doing this season. A team that's winning every week but not playing at their capacity, that's a great team. That's a truly great team. So when they do turn on, watch out. But maybe this 3-month sabbatical has been good for them. Maybe they can take a breath and be recharged. And we will see in front of this really odd empty stadium scenario how the good teams, without that fan pressure, without the Burnleys getting G'd up by that faithful, how they'll fare. And I think I'm with you. I think you'll see the great teams play great in this environment.
Looking ahead then to next season with a tight turnaround, do you think that they start resting players? Do you think that that's in the cards, James?
Well, once they've won the championship, all they're going for at this point is winning the championship, right? Nothing else to really fight for. And once they do that, sure, they can start blooding some young players. I think you see a lot of teams doing that, playing some youngsters, especially now. A lot of the younger players will probably be able to hit the turf running better than the older players. So you'll see a lot of younger players getting more playing time. 5 subs, of course, gives players opportunities as well. So you might see some players being rested, but I'm really fascinated. Listen, 3 months off for you and I might be a long time physically, but these are elite athletes who are being really well conditioned through this time. And nothing beats playing games. I know that. And we saw in Germany some soft tissue injuries, players cramping up late in games, but they got back into it pretty quickly. And I think now they're up to mid-season form, and perhaps in Germany. I think we're the same thing in England in a couple of weeks' time.
And Pep's whining and moaning about it right now that his team's not going to be fully up to speed, but the playing field's equal. Like everyone's in the similar place right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have 5 substitutes to use, and the tactics and the games are going to come fast and furious. If you have a deep fit squad, then you're in a good position. And I mean, look, Liverpool, their first 3 games out of the gate. Everton, Palace, City. If they're not crowned champions in those first 3 games, I'll be absolutely shocked.
Well,
I'll be absolutely shocked. So
you said it, Wheels. So if you have a deep fit squad, that's not the case with all these clubs. Few managers have spoken up, Aston Villa's and Sheffield United's as well. But that the 5 subs won't benefit them as much. How do you feel about that?
Okay, so I did a bit of research, not much to be honest with you about this, but City's last game, right? Man City against United, United won. Their bench was Kyle Walker, Jesus, David Silva, Mendy, Mahrez, and Garcia. It's pretty good, isn't it? It's not bad. Bringing 5 of those guys on late in the game if you have to. Of course, it's going to serve the bigger clubs, who will benefit out of this better. That's just football. That's the reality. Be it 3 or 5 of the starting 11. I understand why Wilder's coming out and saying that. He's trying to, create this us against them, us against the world mentality. He has to right now. Same with Villa. But it doesn't seem to me to be anything different really than we're used to.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you, and you don't have to make 5 changes.
Right,
that's the thing. Yeah. I think that'll make a bigger difference with the games coming up. Weekend, midweek, and making sure that especially players that have been carrying something or returning from injury aren't pushed too much too soon. I think that's where you'll see things play out more. But if your team's playing well, why mess with it? You don't have to make those changes. So I just worry for a team like Sheffield United. I think I know it's not a glamorous tie out of the gate, but Villa Sheffield United, this game has all kinds of ramifications in terms of Champions League spots and the relegation battle. Huge. So it's actually a really good game to start. It's one of those makeup games where Sheffield United can jump into 5th if they win today. And obviously Aston Villa can jump out of the relegation spot with a victory as well. So look, there's no excuses here. Everyone's going to be playing in the exact same environment, albeit in a different sort of way. So you have to adapt, evolve, and figure things out quickly and stay true to your principles. And we'll see which managers can coach their players up and which ones can't.
Yeah. Some managers have done really well this year. One team in particular, you brought him up in your Footy Prime podcast. Craig Forrest, I think, was stumped, James, when you were trying to figure out who the third place team currently is in the table. And
he's got a concussions in fairness, Craig has. So hey, there's that.
Yeah. But I was struggling as well without having it in front of me. I'm like, I totally forgot. It's Leicester with all that they did this year. How incredible have they been? And how do you think that they'll do for the remainder of the season?
They've been one of the stories, if not for the Wolves and the Sheffield United, they might be the story outside, the would-be champions. Brendan Rodgers came in there, reinvented that side. They love playing for him. Jamie Vardy's getting younger each year, it seems, not getting older. He's top of the league charts right now.
Incredible.
With, is it 17 goals or is it 19 goals?
19.
Now. 19 goals, right, yeah. And they're playing a style of football that really suits Jamie Vardy. It's a big year. We're seeing some kids getting blooded here. Harvey Barnes has been just, I think, outstanding. Chowdhury's looking very, very good. But you're looking at some other players in that team, the Ben Chilwells, who could be leaving in the off-season. So it could be, a last chance before a slight rebuild for Leicester. I would love to see them finish top 4. I think we all have a place in our heart for Leicester, right? Given what happened a few years ago now, and of course the tragedy of a couple of years ago now. Right. Leicester is something special. They play a nice brand of football. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for Brendan Rodgers as well, for numerous reasons. He's a good character. He's a bit of I don't know. People call him the David Brent of the Premier League, which is a bit unfortunate, but I like the way he plays football. He's got a great style, dynamic attacking football. Leicester are a team that I don't think will fade away. I think that this break could be really good for them, actually. Like some teams will actually benefit from it. They could be one that actually benefits from a bit of time off and a recharge to those batteries.
See, I'll go the other way. By the way, Brendan Rodgers also battled the coronavirus as well over the course of this. So there's a lot of reasons to support Leicester for this run. And they had a little bit of a wobble before they the demolition job 4-0 against Aston Villa. I think they were being figured out a little bit. They lost in the semifinal of the Carabao Cup to Villa as well. And I just think it's a team that was kind of punching over their weight as well. Their run-in is really interesting for me as well because they play relegation fodder out of the gate. In Watford and Brighton, two teams are going to want to pick up points. And there typically is, and I'm interested to see what happens, those teams right near the bottom, they seem to and tend to over the years pick up more points in the run into the season for whatever reason, whether it's desperation, other teams letting their foot off the gas. But their final two games are against Spurs and United. And those two teams are – that's the group that are fighting for the third, fourth, fifth place spots right now in the Premier League. So I think it's a little bit tricky, and those final two games could decide it. And I think it would be poetic for supporters of Leicester if it comes down to that final match and they get one over on Harry Maguire and a former player. The script is there to be written. They're just the one team that's in the top four right now. I have the most questions about it. I think that they could find their way out of the top four.
And you find that also in these games, like you mentioned, there, Wills, late in the campaign, the crowd has a huge factor in those matches, right? Pushing those teams on, putting those teams under pressure. Without that, we're going to see out of these players who really want it. As simple as that. The atmosphere won't be the same. You can't duplicate it, unfortunately, even with canned cheering, canned chanting and stuff. So we're going to really see a very different. Imagine the last weekend, the relegation battle. Say there's two teams fighting for the last spot to avoid it, and there's no fans in the stadium. You're going to find out who wants that more, because generally speaking, those fans will push those teams and will get them, and they'll breathe off it.
A couple of just really quickly, Asa. Ricardo Pereira, maybe the second best right back in the Premier League this year after Alexander Arnold.
Superb.
He's not fit. He's hurt. That's a significant loss for a team with not a whole lot of depth. And although Jamie Vardy's playing like he's younger, he's not going to be able to go out and play every game. And I have questions about, is it Iheanacho? Can you rely on him being that secondary striker? Who's going to step up and score goals? Is it going to be Perez? Who's it going to be in that team? They rely
Madison's future as well, right? That's going to be a distraction.
They rely heavily on Vardy to produce, and there's no way he's going to be able to play every match coming home. So I do question them a little bit, and that's where the depth maybe can catch up to Leicester a little bit here.
But there's so many question marks around all those teams in the bubble for the top four or top five. There's so many question marks in every single team. And that's what makes this, I think, so fascinating. It might be let's look at it as a brand new season show just for the short term here. I can't imagine a more, difficult league to have any kind of idea and prognosticate about. I just don't know. I can't predict anything. I have no idea, because who's going to be suffering the injuries, who's going to hit the turf running. We don't know any of this stuff.
Well, the two teams that benefit the most clearly,
go
Spurs and Chelsea, Asa. Like those two teams were ravaged with injury, poor form, really ups and downs heading into they needed this to happen. Like Spurs are a completely different team. They were done and dusted. And now when you get Kane and Son back in the team and Bergwijn's fit, like now all of a sudden you're looking at this team that Mourinho has now completely different, because they were battling for a Europa League spot and they weren't looking good for that.
And Jose had these guys on the beach early on in COVID, bonding. That's what he does. Right. The old Jose's back now. I hope the old Jose's back, because I'm a big supporter of Jose Mourinho. But there's still question marks about that. Are we having Zoom meetings every day with Jose Mourinho? I mean, that might be enough to turn them against him.
No,
you never know, right? So, but I know the Kane thing, it is enormous. Without Kane, I don't think anyone gave him much chance to finish top four. Still going to be a big battle. I think it's 7 points for them, right? But that's enormous for them. As for Chelsea, that's probably the most ambitious club right now in the transfer market. With who they're targeting, who they're signing. But does that also cause disharmony in the current team? Tammy Abraham, for example. Oh, Timo Werner's coming
looking over his shoulder now.
Yeah, exactly. Zachek's coming in. What about me now? So you wonder about their future. So again, question marks. Arsenal, Mikel Arteta, who was slowly making his will felt, I think, at Arsenal. It took a while. Obviously, he came in December, I think it was. But again, it's really odd timing for him. He wants to have this different style of football entirely. Can he implement that over Zoom meetings over this whole pandemic? I doubt it. He needs longer training camp than 2 or 3 weeks, right? So, I know, so many great question marks.
And a new squad.
Because they are. I think it's exciting as heck, because, we just don't know what to expect.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the player movement. Chelsea acquiring those two players in particular, Hakim Ziyech and Timo Werner. It's going to be an interesting summer window as well. Alphonso Davies doing very well at Bayern Munich, and that's leading to the questions about Jonathan David, where he might end up, and linked to several Premier League clubs. Where do you think he should go? What do you think's a good fit for Jonathan David, James?
Well, I mean, he's saying all the right things, and that, depending on who interviews him, he'll say the Premier League is the best league in the world, and then the next week he's saying the best fit for me is the Bundesliga. So he's been said some good lines here. I think he'll be successful wherever he goes. This is an attacking forward, 30 goals last 2 years, admittedly in a lower league, but a great athlete, a smart footballer as well, and having watched him a lot, I mean, people say Alfonso's the best Canadian talent right now, and he probably is, but David's not far behind. No, I would love to see him go to England for the the exposure, of course, but to see him don a Borussia Dortmund shirt, I think would be fantastic. They're going to be losing some big players as usual. Jadon Sancho being top of the list probably this transfer window, which will open the door for someone like Jonathan David, and that would be a great fit for him, I think. However, if he got to England, I think that would be great for Canadian football as well for the exposure.
Wherever he goes, they say he needs to play. I agree. That's the condition. When I hear him linked to clubs like United, I can't see him being a first choice player. Like, he needs to go into a place where there's going to be opportunity to improve. Young players this is such a critical move for him at this point of his career. Yeah. And if Borussia Dortmund's a place he's going to play with a young team around him, then so be it. But I think that he needs to be smart about this. And when I look at Premier League sides, Aubameyang's future is really interesting with Arsenal because it is. He's 31. If he ends up going, Arsenal might be a decent team because he'd be in competition with a lot of young players as well. There isn't that established number one. Yeah. Lacazette, okay, that's fine. But our Arsenal would be the one fit that I think that would be kind of intriguing to me if he did go to the Premier League.
But then he might look at Fonzie, his good mate, and think, wow, he went to Bayern Munich and no one thought he'd be starting there. No one thought he'd get playing time there. And now fast forward 18 months and, he's a starting left back at the German champions. So, these guys are confident in themselves, right? And I agree he's got to play football. I hate to see these young players go to these big clubs and rot on the bench. I don't like that. But he's got a lot of confidence in his ability, and going to a young team, a lot of good young teams, like you mentioned, Arsenal's a great example there, Wills, especially if Aubameyang leaves, which I think he will. I mean, he hasn't been happy there from day one, let's be honest. If there's a spot there to fight with some youngsters, great move for him, and it's still a big club, Arsenal. No matter what people might say, it's still a huge club.
Well, but if you to be honest, if you look at their squad right now, they're not acting like a big club, and they don't have players that would reflect them being a big club. I mean, let's be honest. This team is massively in transition right now. They need to go young. Ozil needs to go. If I'm Aubameyang, I'm leaving that club. They don't have first choice center backs of any quality right now. Like, it's a team that's clearly in transition, and some patience is going to be needed. So look, they're looking to bargain shop at a time where their competitors in actual big clubs in the Premier League are going after the best of the best. So I think that this summer, or after this season's over for Arsenal, is going to be a big one. They might not have European football next year as well. I don't think they will. It's going to be a massive challenge.
Season, a really strange. The numbers, the money being thrown around will be suppressed somewhat, I think, but not as much as we might think. I think there's still going to be a lot of money thrown around for some big names, some big contracts. Maybe the middle echelon players, the prices might drop there more. If you're trying to bid for an Aubameyang, for example, even at 31, he's not going cheap, is he? He's going to be very expensive. Werner's gone for 50 million approximately, with a clause, I know that, but still, the big clubs will still spend no matter what's happened the previous.
But Arsenal wasn't spending pre-pandemic. No, what's going to make them spend after this?
Well, they promised Arteta something, right? Because I don't think he would have left Man City without the right situation. I know he's got history at Arsenal, but I would assume, and maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I would assume he's demanded certain promises.
His cupboards aren't bare. Like, I'm not trying to pick on Arsenal here. I really like Saka, Torreira, Martinelli. Like, they have some good young players, but they're going through a rebuild. They're kind of like where United was a couple seasons ago. There's players that need to clearly be shipped out, and their practice and patience is going to have to be preached and practiced at the club because they're not where they need to be, and they're going to have to spend money to get back. Like they're being left in the wake by Spurs right now. And that simply cannot be the case. That cannot stand, because Arsenal should be a bigger club than Spurs, a club that wins absolutely nothing, but right now they're not acting like it.
Well, bringing it back to Jonathan David, and here you guys talk about the EPL turnover from year to year. Is that the best fit for him? Because we talked about it a few times. Tammy Abraham's having a great year, and Chelsea brings in Timo Werner. If he does end up with a big club in the Premier League, would you be concerned for Jonathan David?
Well, maybe there's a stepping stone club. Why does it have to be a big club straight away? Could he go to an Everton or a West Ham, for example, for a couple of years, get the exposure, get all the eyes on him? Because once the British media knows you, then you've been discovered, right? Yeah. We know how it works over there. So, as much as, going to a Manchester United or a Liverpool, it sounds great. And of course, they can pay better wages. I'd like to see these guys take that next step, perhaps, have a long-term plan. You go to a West Ham and Everton, or wherever it's going to be. And that's your building block. Get your playing time. You prove you can play in that league, and then you move forward. But that's why I mentioned Dortmund before as well. Simply because they've got a proven track record of bringing young players in, blooding these young players, and then seeing these young players evolve. I don't think many clubs do it better than that club.
Well, even a club like Leipzig, very well coached, a team that's losing Werner, like they need to put their stake in the ground and say, look, like it's not just about us selling. We need to be able to build something as well. And that would fit the mold, a young player that can still grow, still bring you profit at some time, but can still make you that much more competitive in the Bundesliga. So look, I think that Germany is the spot for him. I think he will end up in the Bundesliga, that the Premier League might be his next step, but it's just based upon what he has said in terms of fit and opportunity, I think Germany is a place for him to go.
What about Ajax? They've been doing it for years too.
I think it would be a step down playing in Netherlands.
Yeah.
Well, not a step down, but a lateral.
Yeah.
Like Ajax is in a strange place now as well, right? They have this wonderful, wonderful team, and it's just a fire sale there. So it's typical. It's a tough one. I just hope that, say he goes to Germany and we got Fonzie in Germany and David in Germany, maybe then Sportsnet play more national German games, across the country.
Right. Yeah. Or maybe it's picked up elsewhere.
Not wink wink.
There you go.
No, I know nothing. But hey, like these like if Germany is the home, and look, Jonathan de Guzman doesn't play for the Canadian national league. He plays in Germany as well. Like it's always been a great place for Canadian footballers to play, and perhaps there'll be more players playing in that league. And in this country, it's good to give profile to leagues where our best Canadian players are playing. It's a no-brainer, really.
Absolutely.
Yes. With that being said, are you concerned with, I guess, the current state of Canadian players and their ability to make it into some of the other big teams? Would you like to see Marc-Anthony Kaye's continue to move on and progress? Just switching it a little bit now to some of the young Canadian talent that we're seeing. Would you like to see more of those players move on and move up?
Well, you want to see it, of course you do. I mean, ideally, of course. I mean, North America is a great, great place to start your career, and you can have a nice career in North America. We know that. But the bigger the league, bigger the team is good for Canadian football. But you've got to be good enough too. There's nothing wrong with being an average player in Major League Soccer, have a nice career. You've got to be good enough. You can't force these moves. And if they're good enough, they will be seen, and they will get their opportunities. It's as simple as that.
I'm not sure it's going to come from the current crop that you consider the first team in terms of Canadian players in John Herdman's immediate plans. I think it's going to be the next wave, the next generation, the kids that are coming out of the academies now, the kids that have been having better coaching and more experience and more professionalism in terms of their development. So I think you're going to see it in the next wave, Asa, not currently.
Well, let me ask you, Wills, both of you, let me ask you this. Do you think by 2026, the starting 11 for Canada, do you think the majority of them are overseas based, or are they still going to be North America based?
I would hope that it's more equitable, 50-50 or 40-60 type thing. But I think that the foundation, the growth of Major League Soccer and the Canadian Premier League and the opportunity now that's being afforded over here, it's less of a requirement now than it was before. Yeah. But I think it speaks volumes if your best players, and John Herdman's described this, you want players playing at tier one, a certain number of players in your first team playing tier one football. And he considers that, the Premier League, the Bundesliga, La Liga, the top 5 leagues in the world. You want those players playing in those climates and in those leagues. At least have a certain number of players in your team. So we'll see how good these young players are coming through, but certainly the eyeballs will be on them. Reputations and exposure is certainly there. So there's really no excuses for it not to happen if the players are good enough.
Yeah, and I feel like we're right there. I feel like that's the next step. And for whatever reason, it feels like there was a bit of a gap in the 90s and early 2000s. There were several players from Canada playing overseas, some you may or may not have heard of. And then it felt like a bit of a gap in some of the major leagues, and that's starting to turn around a lot more nowadays. And hopefully we'll just see more players continue to grow here in Canada and in North America and continue to just get better over there.
Well, I mean, there were many players in that era playing in lower division Scandinavian leagues and that. And now I'm not sure you're better off doing that than staying home, to be honest with you.
Right.
You're probably just as well staying here, which we're now seeing now with the CPL gives you that opportunity, perhaps.
But it's about your passport, right? Like it's players just can't go over. You need to have a European passport. That's why you go over and play in Scandinavia or Denmark or a smaller league in order to fit the requirements. And it seems like when you play on the continent, you're noticed much easier than when you're playing overseas. It's just the way that it is. So it's about opportunity, right? So
yeah. I feel like I'm on one of your podcasts, James. You just went on a total tangent there, and I love it. This is great.
Less profanity, that's all.
Yeah. Considerably less. We've got about 20 minutes left before EPL restarts. Big game later today as well. What are you most looking forward to from the first set of games with the Premier League returning?
Most looking forward to
any matchups in particular?
I wouldn't say matchups per se. I'm just curious. I want to see football back, obviously. I'm curious as to the style, the fitness of the players. We saw in Germany. I was actually quite impressed with the quality of Germany. Clearly, there was rust. But I'm curious as to how that looks like in England. I want to see if this crazy home away form is thrown out of the window like we've seen in Germany. I assume it will be. So there's so many question marks. I'm just happy it's back. I know it's a cliche. I know everyone's saying that right now. And I, like all of you, debated should they come back. Is it worthwhile amidst a global pandemic? But you know what? Yeah, it is. Not because we need an escape, but because football is part of our life. It's part of what we do. Good or bad. I'm just can't wait for a kickoff today at Villa Park. It's going to be great. And I apologize if you my dog barking in the background here.
Okay,
he's excited too. I love it.
Wants to get involved.
Everyone's excited. Yeah.
Well, there's 2 marquee fixtures: the Merseyside derby, where if City slip up today, I can't see them slipping up against Arsenal. Liverpool could be crowned champion on Sunday. I don't think it's going to happen. And I don't really rate this Everton side, to be honest with you. I think it could be a rather one-sided affair. Everton's thin in the midfield. They have injuries, and just in terms of current form, in terms of the way that matchup has gone, it's been completely one-sided. I think that Liverpool will run that. It's got to be Spurs United. Honestly, like 2 teams that are, and it's not just because I'm a United supporter, but what about the intrigue? Not only the fact that both these spots have Champions League ambitions, and their direct futures are affected by whether they qualify for Champions League football or not.
Right.
Spurs are in massive debt. United has their own debt, but with this new stadium, the pressures of a new manager, what's been a disaster of a season, Jose Mourinho, does he have the chops to take this team where Pochettino could not, which is winning a trophy? I highly question that. You have Pogba going up against Mourinho tomorrow afternoon, the first time that they've faced one another since their famous falling out. You have Paul Pogba, is he back in the United team? You're going to finally see what United looks like, a team that went unbeaten in 11, heading into this stoppage with Bruno Fernandes, who was man of the match every single game. He hasn't played with Marcus Rashford and Paul Pogba. You haven't seen what could be, and I'll go on the record saying this, what could be the best midfield in the Premier League come together and play with Fred, Pogba, and Bruno. Is there a better midfield in the Premier League than them?
I forgot how impressed I was with Fernandes. I really do. I'm doing some Bruno Fernandes. He was fantastic. And they were a tough team to beat. I'm not sold on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer just yet, but I think that team is certainly coming into its own slowly. What I find interesting is that, and I'm sure you've read about this too, but Palace played Bournemouth this weekend, right?
Yeah.
A pretty near Palace against Bournemouth. It could be the highest rated Premier League football match ever. It's on the BBC for the first time. The BBC terrestrial television have showed a Premier League game in the history of the Premier League since 1992-93. That will be, without doubt, they're saying, the highest rated Premier League match on TV ever. Crystal Palace against Bournemouth. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, and Palace, it looks like they're safe. Bournemouth, they have to be one of the odds-on favorites to go down.
Terrible run.
And one of their top players, Ryan Fraser, says that he's not going to play. He's not going to sign a short-term contract. He said that today. I think that he's playing his hand all wrong. He's a good player, but is he that exceptional that teams aren't going to look at him in a different way by not committing to a club that you've been with and needs you to stay in the Premier League? I just think it's a massive mistake, and this is a huge game for Bournemouth, and I have a sweet spot for them because I think that Eddie Howe and their side plays good football. They're finally getting David Brooks back. They've been decimated by injuries on the year, and just to have this negative story come out revolving Fraser heading into the restart, it's just I feel for their supporters, to be honest with you.
Who's managing this guy?
It's a great question.
You know, I mean, at this point, for any player to not do all they can to make this as smooth as possible in this very inopportune time to have a global pandemic. I mean, my God, how bad does that, portray the person and the team around him? My word, I mean, I'm with you. You don't want to sign that kind of personality. So you hope he has a change of heart, something happens, because that's extremely selfish. It really is. Nothing. No one's happy about this. Nothing's perfect. It's an imperfect scenario, but it's returning. It's the best we can do right now.
Yeah, Bournemouth is one of those clubs where every time I watch them, I like them. It's enjoyable for me. And then I look at the table and they're towards the bottom every
It's
time.
amazing they've been in the Premier League so long. It really is. Eddie Howe has done a great job there. Maybe it's time he moves on. I'm not sure he is the next Arsene Wenger, who once touted him as that. He could be the next manager of Arsenal, they were saying. But he's a very forward-thinking manager. They play, you're right, the right brand of football. But there's a lot of teams right now who play good football.
That's true.
Who are awful. Look at Norwich, for example. You watch Norwich week in and week out, and you think, how is this team so dreadful in the standings? They have moments in games where they look like world beaters, and then they lose the game. It's a strange world.
They beat City. They beat City this year, right? The thing with Bournemouth, you mentioned the run. There's no way they're staying up. So maybe that's why Fraser's like, I have nothing I can do. Wolves, United, Spurs, Leicester, City. I mean, it's incredible. That's what makes this game against Palace this weekend so critical for them. You need to go out and win games like this.
Well, the last match day sees Chelsea play Wolves. That could be enormous for both those teams' short-term futures, right? They're both so ambitious. Chelsea, we know, is spending money, but they need Champions League football. Roman seems to be, once again, reinvigorated. And Wolves are a team that they have got a big plan here. This is not a short-term, Charlie. This is a team that they want to build this and become a perennial European contender. They've got a lot of money in their club, some good players. And if they finish top 4 or top 5, that's going to be a huge step for them to push forward as well. So, out of all the games remaining, right, Spurs United this weekend's great, but Chelsea Wolves, I mean, I know it's not for a few weeks now, but that could be the one to watch.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't always agree with the pundits, but I think their style sets up well. It's been put out there that they're a team to watch. I think that Danny Higginbotham wrote about how Wolves could be kind of the team that finds their form easier than anyone else. And I kind of agree with it because playing with those 3 center backs and the fullbacks and just the style of play that they have, it's consistent. I can see them consistently picking up points over this run-in and put themselves in a position where they're really very much in the mix for that Champions League spots, let alone Europa League spots. I think that they're a team with quality. They have strength in multiple areas. They got goals up front with Jimenez and Jota, and
Traore's had a breakthrough season, hasn't he? Once again, it's just incredible.
Him and Leon Goretzka are like having a contest to see who can be the most cut, the most ripped. It's like Incredible Hulk right now.
Yeah,
so
it'd be like me and you, Wheels, in the older,
pretty much just like us. So I kind of tip Wolves to be in that 4th, 5th place area right now. I
hope they get there. I do. Because they're a fun team to watch, and they're a new face, right, as well.
Yeah.
They're now getting a new face to make it interesting.
They have an easy run in too. The second easiest in terms of strength of schedule coming in, so bodes well for them.
All right, let's look at the relegation battle then. I guess we can all agree Norwich out.
Yeah, I think it's
done.
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 And then
but they play nice football.
What's that?
but they play nice football.
That's right. Yeah, very attractive brand.
It'll be brilliant in the championship next year. Timu Pukki, golden boots.
Pukki's been good. Yeah, Villa, Bournemouth, Watford, West Ham. Throw Brighton in there too. Who do you have at the bottom? The other two.
I'm refusing to predict anything. I said that, right? I'm not gonna, because I just don't know. You know, with no fans in the house, the home and away records are going to be just oh, absolutely. I've built a career on being gutless. You know that. You know what? Listen, Watford are playing better. They're going to get out there, I think. Villa's in a lot of trouble. Today's an enormous match for Villa. I think you mentioned it before, how big it is. They win today. They're out of that drop zone. They got some big issues there, I think. McGinn's back, though, I think, healthy again. Yeah. And him and Grealish was so good to start the season. And when he went out, they really struggled. So Villa might have enough to pull out of there. But, yeah, there's 7 or 8 teams. You know, I think the Southamptons, the Newcastles will be okay. They're safe enough. But yeah, without the home support to drive these teams forward, I don't know.
I think Southampton will be safe. It's odd today they took the captaincy away from Højbjerg and gave it to James Ward-Prowse. Højbjerg's trying to leverage and angle for a move out of Southampton. So, but I trust Hasenhüttl. I think he's done a really nice job with that team. Kind of remaking them on the fly. I think they're okay. They're on 34 points. Somehow Watford's going to be safe. I think
they're playing better football. They are.
They do.
Nigel Pearson has proven he's done it before, right? He'll save them.
The two. It's in between two teams. Bournemouth down for me. Norwich down. It's between two teams. I do not trust David Moyes at all with West Ham. I am sorry. I've seen this song and dance. His football is more suited to a previous era than it is today. I really worry about West Ham United. I think they might just have enough in the team to see them clear, but it's going to be tooth and nail right to the end. The team that I actually think is going to drop, and I think it's unfortunate because I actually think they made progress, and I actually think that they play a much better brand of football under Graham Potter, is Brighton. It's a team. I just don't think that they have enough in the squad, to be honest with you. I think they've been brave at times this year, but I don't know if bravery is what sees teams through a relegation battle like this in the end. They have a tough run-in as well. I think it'd be unfortunate. I'm pulling for them. They play Arsenal, Leicester, United, their first 3 matches here.
Yeah.
I mean, they could find themselves, you know, in 19th place in a blink of an eye right here. So I really worry about Brighton. So if I'm a betting man, and it just happened to be, I'd say it's Norwich, Bournemouth, and Brighton who are going down.
I think Chris Hughton was poorly treated, so I don't care. They can go down for all I care. Bye.
They also have Liverpool and City, by the way, coming up in their schedule as well. It's just, yeah.
All right, we're just about 10 minutes away from kicking off the restart in the English Premier League. We've seen the Bundesliga restart. They have the fake crowd noise. Is that something you're into, James, or is there anything that you'd like to see? They have entrance music now. I believe that players can have entrance music and goal-scoring tunes. That seems all right.
No, it doesn't. It sounds terrible. But I'm old-fashioned. I'm a curmudgeon. You know what? I've given the fake crowd noise a chance, and it does add something, I suppose, to the game. But you know, I can't get over the fact that it feels like Who's the Boss from 1987. You know, the like canned laughter. Track? You know, if you need to make me laugh, it's not funny. Okay, I know when a goal's scored, I don't need that. So I prefer to have the natural sound and just hear the odd expletive go off. I hope they mic the referees up. That's what they should do. I think it'd be really interesting. You can't trust footballers to keep their mouth shut. That's the issue. Rugby, you can. But that would be fantastic. And we haven't mentioned it yet. And it's amazing. I'm happy for the last time in about the next 6-7 weeks. We haven't mentioned it, but VAR, VAR, it's still there, people. It's still there, ruining our game.
I kind of like some of the things that they're doing. They're going to play, I think at Old Trafford, what they're going to do is they're going to play fan celebrations as goals happen live in the stadium at that moment on the screens. They're putting big screens outside. No, but they're going to amplify it as part of the broadcast as well. So they're going to show it in the stadium, but they're going to be able to show it on the broadcast as people react in live time to when the goals are scored. Right. I think some of these ideas are good. Playing
social
music,
distance, of course.
Yes, exactly. In your own, it's James Sharman celebrating in his house with his Anfield Road sign. Yeah, no, but like they're coming up with these ideas to at least give it some personality, give it some character, make it less stale. I'm fine with that. Have fun with it. Make the viewing experience that much more better. I love the idea of goal celebrations. It should be like walk-up music in baseball, where you come on, you come off, you play a song. I'll pick my own and I'll play it by us signing off here. And it should do that for goal celebrations as well. It allowed the players to choose their own goal celebrations. Why not? This is a time when you can have fun with it. I think the players will embrace it as well and just add a little bit more flavor to what is an otherwise sterile environment.
I'm fine trying things. Just allow me to dismiss it once I've seen it.
That's fine. That's fine.
I've enjoyed watching the games without the crowd noise and kind of watching it like a training match and be able to pick up whatever I can from the players and just hearing the crunch of a tackle a little bit more. I'm all for that. I feel like that experience has been good and enhanced.
Well, it's an advantage to teams like City, who their fans just show up and don't make noise anyways. Unless it's a UEFA anthem. So, some clubs will be more used to it.
As opposed to all those London-based United fans filling Old Trafford, right?
Brilliant. It's a global club, James. Don't be a snob. Don't be a snob.
Well, it's an opportunity for the players to express themselves. And that's one thing that we've seen over the past 3 months without football for most athletes. Marcus Rashford most recently donated campaigning to feed kids in the UK. That's been really good. And the age of the guy, he's 22 years old. And it's amazing that he now feels he has the support to make a stand and use his platform. And I think that's one of the things that I've been most encouraged to see is that more players are using this platform. And that's no longer a question. We're not asking if they could use their platform, but how they will. And it's been great to see.
Rashford's been a champion, hasn't he? And if you're not supporting Manchester United right now, you never will, because there's a lot of reason to love that kid and everything that he's done. And you're right, 22 years of age. And he's not the only one. Like Raheem Sterling has come out and spoke on positive cause and been a real positive influence in the past as well. So it's interesting that it's a lot of the young players that are kind of feeling the freedom. Maybe it comes with a little bit more security. They're willing to take risks. They already have a big paycheck. They're popular. They're comfortable in their own skin, but it's trending in the right direction, isn't it?
I have to say, I can't remember a time, honestly, in English football, maybe in world football, where a couple of players have been so important and have used their platform for the right reasons, not selfish reasons whatsoever. You look at Rashford and what he's done. You look at Sterling the last number of months, years now, really pushing the Black Lives Matter movement as well. These might be the most important footballers England's produced, maybe ever. And on a global scene, very close to that as well, because what they're saying, people are listening to, and they're so eloquent the way they're putting it. They're thought out. They're not just putting their name or their face to a movement or a brand. This has come from the heart. They've been through it. They understand what it's like to be hungry as a kid, to face racism. So I think what they've been doing is being just wonderful to watch. And in these crazy times we're going through right now, to see these two figures evolve into such important figures and showing that they're more than just footballers who can dribble the ball really well, that's incredible. And I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I hope it continues.
Give the clubs credit too, because players haven't had what they've been silenced. There's not a microphone in front of these players' faces on a daily basis like you have in North American sport. And managers before would just want their players solely focused on their football. Right. Now the clubs are really supportive of their players, so they deserve some credit as they're evolving as well.
Right? Throwing the Black Lives Matter on the back of the shirt, obviously showing that they're supporting this human rights issue. So that I think goes a long way. The young players are feeling supported and they're using their voice the right way, as you said, James.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a huge, initiative by the Premier League, making that Black Lives Matter movement part of the narrative, part of the conversation. I mean, to be in the back of the shirts, the Premier League broadcasting over 200 nations around the world for months. That's a big statement. It's a good stepping stone. It's a good start. not there yet, obviously, but that's the league taking it very seriously.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to wrap things up now. I'm going to allow Gareth Wheeler to express himself by giving us our sign-out music. Whatever your entrance music was going to be, you can lead us out.
Before I go, do you want my top 4 predictions or my top 5? Because City's not going to be in Europe.
Nope. No, we don't.
I'm going to go Liverpool. I'm going to go Chelsea, United, and Wolves as the 4 teams in Champions League.
You got Chelsea in there. That's all right. Are you back on Inside the Game tomorrow? Quick plug there. Who you got on Inside the Game tomorrow?
Claudio Reyna. I hear his kid Gio is pretty good, playing for Borussia Dortmund right now. Former Rangers Sunderland player as well, and the new sporting director at Austin FC. So he's going to join me at 2 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Great. Thanks so much, guys. It's been a blast. We got to do this again.
Anytime, fellas. Really enjoyed that. Yeah, it's back, fellas. It's back.
Yeah, it is back. For James Sharman, Gareth Wheeler, I'm Asa Rahman. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy the Premier League returning.